The history of Blockbuster is one of the most fascinating stories in business. Blockbuster was once the giant of the movie rental world. At one point, they had over 9,000 stores, making $800 million a year just from late fees alone, and it was one of the most visited places in America on weekends. However, in year 2000, the founders of Netflix came to Blockbuster, offering to sell their company for $50 million. But Blockbuster's CEO laughed on them and turned down the offer, saying Netflix business was not sustainable. Fast forward to 2010, that same giant Blockbuster went bankrupt, while Netflix became a $9 billion company. So, what went wrong? How did Blockbuster go from being worth billions of dollars to being nothing but a nostalgic memory? And the truth is, Netflix wasn't alone that killed Blockbuster. Welcome to the dramatic rise and fall of everyone's favorite movie rental store, Blockbuster. Our story starts with a man named David Cook. He was running a small software company called Cook Data Services, which made programs for the oil and gas industry. But things weren't going well, and David was struggling to keep the business alive. Around the same time, in the early 1970s, something new was taking over America's movie market, the VHS tape. For the first time, families could watch movies whenever they wanted, right from their living rooms. And soon, most small family-owned stores started renting these tapes, and that's how the movie rental business was born. Surprisingly, the whole idea of movie rentals caught David's wife's attention, and together they decided to try it out. They bought a franchise in Dallas called Video Works, but the franchise store wasn't attractive enough to grab customers. David knew something had to change. He came up with a bold idea: redesign the store with his own unique blue and yellow theme so it would stand out. When he shared this idea with the franchise owners, they rejected and told him to stick with the same boring look. David was very angry, and in that very moment he made a decision. If they wouldn't let him build the store his way, then he would build his own. However, instead of rushing to open a store right away, David first studied how other movie rental stores looked and worked. What he found was surprising. Most stores were still keeping records manually, and many had kept movie tapes in back room, hidden from customers. On top of that, the store environment wasn't family friendly. David immediately saw this as opportunity. His vision was shelves in the store so customers could choose and pick their own movies. He also wanted a computerized system with barcodes to track rentals and a bright family-friendly design for customers. But there was one big problem. To turn this vision into reality, David needed money and he simply didn't have it. So with no other choice, he made a tough decision. He sold his struggling software business. In 1985, David Cook opened his very first store and named it Blockbuster. It wasn't just another rental shop, it was the biggest movie rental store of at that time, with around 8,000 movies available. No other video rental business offered that kind of selection back then. On opening day, Cook expected few customers, but what happened that night shocked him. The crowd was so massive that the store had to lock its doors just to stop more people from entering. Right then, it was clear this is not an ordinary rental store. Its location made it stand out from the rest. They drew in thousands of customers. Many of them were never entered video rental shop before. However, it was clear David wouldn't stop with one store. Within a year, he opened 3 more stores. To grow even faster, he built a franchising model where Blockbuster Entertainment gave new owners everything they needed: movies, computer systems, branding, and full support, so they could start running a store right away. In 1986, David raised $4 million from investors to take Blockbuster beyond his city. His vision was clear: expand fast, crush the competition, and dominate the video rental industry. And that's exactly what happened. Small rental shops and family-owned stores couldn't keep up with Blockbuster's aggressive rise. One by one, they shut their doors, while Blockbuster grew rapidly. However, by 1987, Blockbuster had already grown to 133 stores across America, becoming a true household name in movie rentals. But in the excitement of expansion, David made a big mistake. To raise more money and open even more stores, he sold a majority stake of Blockbuster to Wayne Huizenga and his 2 former partners for $18.5 million. With that deal, Huizenga took control as the new CEO. Suddenly, David lost his decision-making power. Their visions were very different. David wanted to keep expanding Blockbuster stores one by one, while Huizenga's plan was to buy out competitors and open hundreds at once. The tension were growing between them, and in the end, David was forced to make the hardest decision of his life. He he resigned and walked away from the very company he had built with his own hands. Despite this tragedy, Blockbuster's business was booming. Most stores were making over $1 million a year in sales, with about $300,000 in profit each. In fact, every new location was profitable from day one. There was no waiting period because demand was so massive. With each successful store funding the next, Blockbuster created a rapid cycle of growth. By early 1988, Blockbuster already had over 400 stores, and by the end of that year, it was close to 800. The growth was insane. At one point, Blockbuster was opening a new store every 16 hours. Their vision was simple: open stores everywhere they could, then sit back and count the profits. They knew they were the first big player in the market, and they wanted to take full advantage of it. By the mid-1990s, Blockbuster started buying music stores, other video rental chains, and even small stakes in entertainment companies. They wanted people to see Blockbuster as more than just a rental store. But even after all this, their main source of income coming from movie rentals. And with that, Blockbuster became the #1 rental business. Blockbuster was enjoying its success, but they had no idea big competition was waiting around the corner. In 1993, a rising competitor called Hollywood Video entered the movie rental market. They had recently bought Video Central, another small but successful rental chain, and even pulled off an IPO that raised about $12 million. At the time, Hollywood Video only had 15 stores, but within just 3 years they exploded to 550 locations, a massive threat for Blockbuster. At first, Blockbuster didn't take them seriously, even assuming that Hollywood Video wasn't profitable. But the truth was the complete opposite. Hollywood Video was growing fast and making good profits. Hollywood Video was very clever with its strategy. They knew that if they wanted to compete and make more profits, they had to steal Blockbuster's customers. So they started opening their stores right next to Blockbuster's busiest locations. On top of that, they undercut Blockbuster by offering rentals at lower prices. This strategy worked. Hollywood Video wasn't just competing, they were bleeding Blockbuster's profits and slowly eating its customers. For example, if a Blockbuster store made $1 million in sales, Hollywood Video opening next door could cut that by 40%. This happened not once, not twice, but several times. Instead of fighting with Hollywood Video, Blockbuster kept opening new stores in other locations. This turned out to be a big mistake because for Blockbuster, growth meant more stores, not making the existing ones profitable. While Hollywood Video was opening stores right next to Blockbuster and stealing its customers, Blockbuster believed people would stay loyal and keep coming back. But reality is, in business, customers are always loyal to price, not any store's name. By the end of 1997, things went bad. Blockbuster's profits turned into losses, and the company became cash flow negative. However, while Blockbuster was busy opening more and more stores, Hollywood Video was quietly focusing on what customers actually wanted. And the truth was, most people wanted the newest movies. But at Blockbuster, those movies were almost always out of stock. The problem was simple. Blockbuster rented new releases for 2 full days, so if someone grabbed a new movie on Friday night, it wouldn't return until Sunday. The only solution was to buy extra copies, but new movies were very expensive, which was additional cost for Blockbuster. On the other hand, Hollywood Video came up with a smarter rental offer. They rented new releases for just 1 day. That way, if a movie went out Friday night, it was back on the shelf by Saturday, so another person could rent on Saturday. On top of that, while Blockbuster charged $3 for new movie, Hollywood Video charged only $1. For customers, Hollywood Video became more beneficial. They get new movies at lower price. But instead of focusing on fixing the real problem, like increasing rental profits, lowering prices, or reducing rental days, Blockbuster was busy chasing other revenue streams. They promoted movies for studios, filled their stores with TVs running movie trailers, and even partnered with Nintendo to rent out video games. Sure, these moves brought in some extra money, and on paper, Blockbuster looked like it was making profits. But reality was very different. The core business, movie rentals, was struggling, and without solving that, nothing else could truly save them. By 1994, Hollywood Video had become the second biggest rental chain right behind Blockbuster. Both companies were taking money from investors and opening more and more stores. At the same time, Blockbuster's music business, which it had bought earlier, was also not doing well. By now, Huizenga was frustrated with Blockbuster business. The business was slowing down and rivals were getting stronger. Huizenga had only two options: make big changes on Blockbuster business and fight with Hollywood Video, or sell the company and leave. Sadly, he chose the second option. That same year in 1994, Viacom bought Blockbuster for $8.4 billion, and thus Huizenga left the company. At that time, Blockbuster had around 3,755 stores worldwide, but after the deal, things only got worse. Blockbuster repeated the same mistake again. Rather than focusing on making existing stores profitable, they kept opening new ones. In just 3 years, they added 2,000 more stores. But more stores didn't mean more profit, it only meant more expenses and higher costs. Blockbuster was bleeding money chasing growth that wasn't real. And on the other side, Hollywood Video fell into the same trap. Sales went up because of more stores, but profits went down because the cost of running them was simply too high. From the outside, it looked like Blockbuster was on top, dominating the industry and making big money. But inside, the truth was very different. Netflix hadn't even entered the market yet, and still, Blockbuster was already struggling from inside, and the company wasn't ready for what was about to come. In 1997, technology improved and DVD arrived in America, and within just a few years, they began replacing VHS tapes. Because DVDs were smaller, had better sound and picture quality, and most importantly, they were cheaper than VHS. While VHS tapes cost around $60 to $70, DVDs were just $15 to $20. Because of this lower price, many families preferred to buy DVDs instead of renting them. But even then, the demand for DVD rentals was still high. Luckily, to fight back against this new technology, Blockbuster brought in new CEO, John Antioco. According to Blockbuster, DVDs were a great invention and a huge opportunity. Their thinking was simple: they could stock more of them, rent them out at lower prices, attract more customers, and in the end, make good profits. However, John's new CEO made several changes. First, he lowered rental prices, and sometimes, just to beat Hollywood Video, Blockbuster shifted focus to older movies, which they could buy cheaply and rent out for even less than Hollywood's price. At first, this strategy worked. Sales went up, rentals increased, and customers kept coming back. But the problem was still not over. All these changes were costing Blockbuster a lot of money. They were already in debt and investors were pushing hard. They needed urgent money to fight with competition and stay in business. So in August 1999, Blockbuster did its IPO, they went public and raised $465 million. But they had no idea that in just a few years, new competitor will enter the market and completely change the movie rental business. In 1997, Netflix entered in market. At first, Netflix was just a DVD by mail service, almost the same as Blockbuster. On Blockbuster, you need to go to store, whilst on Netflix, you can get DVD by mail. But the business wasn't going good. Then, Netflix co-founder Mark Randolph came up with a game-changing idea. Customers could pay a monthly fee, get 3 DVDs at a time, keep them as long as they wanted, and whenever they sent one back, Netflix would send another one. This was the birth of the subscription model, something completely new and unheard of at that time. Luckily, customers loved this Netflix's new subscription model. It was something completely different and revolutionary. No late fees, no need to return a movie, and no need to even step outside your home. The DVDs arrived right at your doorstep, and because of this, more and more people coming to Netflix. With this, Netflix started to grow really fast. But suddenly, everything came crashing down. In the year 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. The stock market collapsed, investors pulled their money, and Netflix suddenly found itself running out of cash. Tensions were rising inside Netflix office. Of course, Netflix was growing fast with its new subscription model, but compared to Blockbuster, it was still very small. In 2000, Netflix made just $5 million in revenue, while Blockbuster made $800 million from late fees alone. The only real advantage Netflix had that Blockbuster was too slow to react to the rise of the internet. Blockbuster's attitude was simple: if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Still, Netflix was scared that Blockbuster might copy their DVD by mail idea, and if that happened, Blockbuster had so much money and power that they could destroy Netflix overnight. Before the dot-com crash, investors were throwing money at any company that had .com in its name. But after the crash, nobody wanted to touch the dot-com company anymore. Netflix was running out of money fast, and if they couldn't arrange quickly, the company would soon be out of business. At that moment, Netflix founders saw only one option: sell Netflix to Blockbuster. So, Netflix founder Reed used his contacts to set up a meeting with Blockbuster. After a lot of effort, the meeting finally arranged. In the Blockbuster office, both Netflix founders shared their pitch. If Blockbuster and Netflix worked together, they could rule both stores and the online rentals. The Blockbuster CEO listened quietly. When they finished, he said he didn't believe online models like Netflix was sustainable business. Then, almost just out of curiosity, he asked, "What price are you looking to sell Netflix for?" One of the Netflix founders calmly replied, $50 million. At that moment, the Blockbuster executives started laughing. To them, it sounded crazy that during the dot-com crash, a small DVD by mail company thought it was worth $50 million. The Blockbuster CEO tried to hide his smile, but it was clear, Blockbuster wasn't interested in buying Netflix, and to them, Netflix valuation was just a joke. Both Netflix founders were heartbroken and left the meeting. Blockbuster executives didn't know they would one day regret this decision. Back then, $50 million was nothing for Blockbuster. They recently did an IPO and they could easily buy Netflix. If we look at today what Netflix has become, it's clear that this was one of the biggest mistakes in Blockbuster's history. However, for now, Blockbuster had different plans. That same year, they partnered with Enron to launch online movie streaming, basically the same thing Netflix is doing today. But the deal failed miserably. Remember, this was the year 2000 when fast internet wasn't common and most people didn't even have internet at home. Because of that, the partnership ended in 2001. Basically, Blockbuster's timing for launching online streaming was terrible. And while Blockbuster was busy failing with Enron, Netflix kept moving forward. Blockbuster soon realized that customers were leaving their stores and choosing Netflix instead. They knew they had to act fast before it was too late. So Blockbuster launched its own DVD subscription service called Blockbuster Online, which worked almost the same as Netflix. Blockbuster believed this move would beat Netflix, but the problem was they were already a little late. By this time, Netflix had raised hundreds of millions of dollars. They had built one of the most advanced websites on the internet, which keeping customers hooked. On top of that, Netflix had created a powerful distribution system that could deliver DVDs to most of its subscribers overnight. However, people were choosing Netflix over Blockbuster for several reasons. First, Netflix had a smart recommendation system called Cinematch that suggested personalized movies by looking at what the user had already watched. Second, Netflix was offering overnight delivery, which became its biggest strength. And lastly, Blockbuster's service quality never even came close to what Netflix was offering. Since they couldn't match Netflix, Blockbuster tried to fight with a price war, cutting prices and even offering 2 free rentals in their stores every month. But this backfired. Instead of helping, it created trouble. More people rushed to grab the free movies, and very quickly the popular and newest movie were out of stock. To make things even worse, in January 2005, Blockbuster made another big mistake. They removed late fees. At first, Blockbuster thought this was great, but late fees were the main source of Blockbuster's income. Without them, the company lost a lot of cash. However, Blockbuster was a little sneaky with its no late fee offer. If someone didn't return a DVD in a week, they converted it into a sale and charged the full DVD price. This made people furious. Things got so bad that Blockbuster was taken to court and had to pay $630,000 in a settlement. But the biggest loss wasn't money, it was trust. People started to lose trust from Blockbuster. In 2006, Blockbuster came up with a new plan called Total Access. The idea sounded simple but very powerful. Customers still need to pay the same monthly fee, but now they had 2 choices: return DVDs by mail like before, or drop them off at a Blockbuster store and instantly grab another DVD for free. For people, this was an amazing deal, actually even better than Netflix. Because with Netflix, you had to wait for the DVD to arrive in the mail. But with Blockbuster, you could walk into a store and get a movie right away. At first, customers loved it, but for Blockbuster, things went wrong again. People started taking full advantage of this deal, watching a DVD in one day, then returning it the next day and grabbing a new one. Many even did this every single day. Most of the popular movies were gone instantly, and shelves started looking empty all the time. In simple words, Blockbuster was almost giving away unlimited free movies. By the end of 2007, Blockbuster was losing a lot of money. The plan that was supposed to save them was now destroying their profits, and the company started struggling even more. And sadly, within just 3 years, Blockbuster would be out of business. By the late 2007, the movie rental business had become very tough for Blockbuster. The company was already struggling with money, and many of its stores were losing business. One by one, they had to start shutting them down. On top of that, Blockbuster was buried in heavy debt, and its financial condition kept getting worse. Then, another competition arrived and made things much harder. The new competition was Redbox Kiosk. It was like a vending machine, but for movies. It was cheap and simple, no need for a big store or staff. You could place it almost anywhere. The surprising part? It rented DVDs for just $1 a day, something no one else was offering. Because of that low price, people started lining up, and Redbox's sales kept growing. Soon, the Red Kiosk spread into drugstores, supermarkets, and other busy spots. Big retailers like Walmart, Target, Kroger, Safeway, Walgreens, and even 7-Eleven wanted Redbox machines in their stores. With that kind of reach, people naturally started picking Redbox over Blockbuster, and as a result, Blockbuster's sales dropped even further. However, Blockbuster tried to fight back. In 2010, they launched their own version of DVD kiosks, hoping it would bring customers and money. But by then, it was already too late. Redbox had taken over and Blockbuster's kiosks failed badly. With all this, it was clear that Blockbuster had been slowly dying for almost 10 years. They were losing to Hollywood Video, Netflix, and now Redbox. Even though they tried a few new things, those moves were small and done mostly to keep investors happy. The real problems inside the stores were never fixed. So for people who watching closely, Blockbuster's end was not a surprise. It was only a matter of time. Sadly, that time came in September 2010. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy, in debt of around $1 billion. Back in 2004, Blockbuster was at its peak with 9,000 stores, and they were making $800 million alone from late fee. But by the time of bankruptcy, only 1,700 struggling stores were left, and even those were losing money. One by one, almost every store shut down. As of today, only one Blockbuster store left in Bend, Oregon. This last store is privately owned and mainly runs as a nostalgic tourist spot. There was even a documentary made about it, and in a twist of irony, that documentary was available on Netflix. However, Blockbuster's biggest downfall came mostly from its own business decisions. The management must look back today and think how different things could have been if they had made just a few good decisions, like buying Netflix when it was offered for only $50 million. Although there's no guarantee that if Blockbuster had bought Netflix, it would have been as successful as it is today. The truth is, Blockbuster was too slow on adapting online. While Netflix started as a DVD by mail service and quickly shifted to streaming, Blockbuster launched its own online service too late and never caught up. Also, Blockbuster's high rental prices and late fees made customers unhappy. People found Netflix and Redbox affordable and easier to use. Blockbuster never fixed its customer service or changed prices in time, and that pushed even more customers away. Surprisingly, from the beginning, Blockbuster kept focusing on opening more and more stores instead of making each store truly profitable. Blockbuster grew fast because it had the first mover advantage. At that time, no one else was renting movies the way Blockbuster did. That's why it quickly became big, made a lot of money, and built an empire. But later, as competition increased, Blockbuster's poor decisions led it into trouble. The company also carried a huge debt. They kept opening thousands of stores worldwide, but this created high costs and big management problems. Meanwhile, cheaper and easier options like Netflix's mail service or Redbox kiosks were winning customers. Blockbuster's story proves that becoming number one in any business and staying number one are two entirely different things. However, while I was researching on this video, I found that many people still miss those old days of walking into Blockbuster on weekends, picking up VHS tapes and watching movies at home. So tell me in the comments, do you miss those days or not? And if you love this story, I highly recommend you to watch this next.